Before I even start talking, I want you to go ahead and read that. You had enough time to read that? Hold on. Give you a little bit more time. We'll give you a little bit more time. Okay. So now that you see, these are two different concepts. By the way, Yale School of Medicine, you can tell that these are two different concepts. So the motherfuckers arguing trans women aren't women and trans men aren't men. It literally says right there in Yale's definition, a well-trusted source to the people I was talking to, a well-trusted source labeling the fact that gender identity is a sense of self. It's literally internal. So to the people arguing that gender and sex are the same thing and conflating the two, that's the difference right there. A sense of self. While most sexes, male and or female, when you look at it, they usually have the features of things biologically. So that would be your genitalia, that would be like what I look like, that would be phenotypical, what you can see. But that has nothing to do with my internal sense of self, which is where we get the term man and woman, their gender identities, their gender roles. They fall under that category. Sex and gender are two separate concepts. Sex is something that we can look at biologically and be like, oh, this may be the case whenever we're referring to gender. You want to know why we can't accurately depict whether or not somebody's gender is assigned at birth correctly? You want to know why we can't accurately tell that? Because I can't look into your brain and tell you what your experience is. I can't look into your brain and tell you what your identity is. You want to know why? Because we haven't developed that type of technology. So to the people arguing, well, doctors give you this gender at birth, so it has to be right, people get misgendered. People go through treatment as the wrong gender. And you want to know what that leaves them with? Gender dysphoria. It's in and of itself built on the fact that most people are given the wrong gender at birth, which in any case, they'll figure them out. They will usually figure that out farther in life, right around the time, puberty starts to hit. They're starting to assimilate to a gender identity that doesn't align with them, and they're starting to feel stress from that. Like that's the majority of the cases that I've been reading up on, or at least I've discussed with people in actual real life. So to say that doctors can't be wrong, they 100% can't be wrong as far as what to label you as far as gender, because I was labeled female for like at birth, like literally on my birth certificate it says female. Now I can't say what the doctors did to come to that conclusion, but as you can tell, I'm a man. I'm actually a man. So to say that doctors 100% of the time do not get it wrong is ridiculous. And then to say that also we have the technology to look at that straight off rip, just straight out the womb, does not make sense. If it's an internal sense of self and I haven't developed yet, how the fuck can you tell me who I am and what gender I align with? And I'm just born. Does that make sense to you? There's no experience there. There's, you know what I'm saying? I was born, I can experience, but have I experienced? No. Gender identity is literally you going through life through a certain lens, through a certain experience. So if I align with the male experience, male roles in society, I'm gonna fit with the man aspect of the fucking gender. And the same thing for the opposite. If I experience womanly features, if I experience a women experience, that would make me a woman. In part, the same thing when it comes down to those roles as well. If I'm more feminine, have a more feminine aspect of certain things, that would make me a woman. You want to know why? Because myself, my internal sense of self, aligns with the woman experience. My internal self aligns with the man experience. Male and female are two separate concepts of the experience of an actual human. Yes, we can typically use this to assign somebody a gender at birth, but that does not mean it's always correct. Because if that's the case, I should be a woman. I should be able to, do women activities. Not to get in the whole thing, because I'm not the type of nigga to fucking do that. But you get what I'm saying. If we were to go straight off of what the doctors were saying, and it's not an internal sense of self, it's nothing like that, even though Yale themselves have come out and say it's an internal sense of self. Webster's dictionary comes out and saying that it's an internal sense of self for gender itself, the concept. Then how are you going to tell me what my gender is? How are you going to tell anybody else, let alone what their gender is? off rip when they're born. How does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? So yes, doctors typically do use sex to relate to gender, but I would just argue this is a malpractice in and of itself because there is no experience within either gender identity to be able to give me. So again, just to wrap everything up, male and female typically exhibit characteristics that can align with the gender identity of woman. Males can typically exhibit traits that would align with the man experience. But again, that does not mean they're the same thing. The fact that in Yale themselves, gender identity wasn't a subset or a part of the definition of sex means they are two separate concepts. Okay? Okay, so just to clarify, two separate concepts. And what is gender identity? It's an internal sense of self related to or mainly associated by the experience that that person is going through. Okay? So again, I can't tell you what your experience is the same way that you can't tell anybody else what the experience is. And as far as not having the technology to be able to identify somebody's gender at birth, we actually do have the technology to look at adults, to look at teenagers and scan their brains. Basically, they did this study, I believe it was in either Alaska or Arkansas. It was one of the fucking two. But either way, they got a whole bunch of patients together. They were showing them images of what a male body looks like and what a female body looks like. Basically, every single time you had a trans woman come into the room and look at a female's body and a male's body, their brain lit up whenever they saw that female body, because that's what their gender identity aligned with. Now, they didn't only use trans people for the study, they used cisgender men and women for the study as well. So can you guess what happened when the cisgender women also saw a woman on screen, also saw the female body on screen? Their brains lit up the same way that a trans woman's would light up. You want to know what happened with trans men and men in that same study? Whenever they saw the men bodies, whenever they saw the male bodies, you want to know what their brains did? It lit up on the male side, the same way it would for a cisgender male. So again, if we want to look at brain functionality, we could literally say, just off of that alone, that they are reacting the same. Straight out, no fucking confusion whatsoever. They're reacting the same. So you want to know the conclusion that I come to with that study is that their gender identities are aligning the exact same way, meaning they are the exact same thing. They're going through the same experience. Yes, one was mislabeled at birth and experiences stress due to that mislabeling, due to that misidentifying, and they're getting treatment to help that. So I would just then say, why are you mad at people for getting treatment? Why are you saying it's weird to get treatment? If people have cancer, they're going to go to get chemo. If I'm experiencing stress, I'm going